Greetings, fellow inhabitants. To all the guests, I bid you welcome to the Island of Randomness. I'm CGLD1130. I am the Lord of the Island. And just to kind of give you guys a little bit of an update of what's been going on, I am not dead, first and foremost. I wanted to let you guys know that I'm still alive. I've actually been editing video footage here. And I've actually made a secondary video about this, about something. We'll get to that in a bit. I'll upload that soon. If it's not already uploaded, um, I'll probably put a card somewhere right around there. So, yeah. But I wanted to talk to you about travel. I've been thinking about it while editing my MetroCon video, and this is a very, this has been, this has been chewing at my mind for some time now. Throughout the 30 years that I have lived on this planet Earth, I have only traveled to a handful of states from Florida. Georgia, North Carolina, Texas, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. Yeah. And I've only traveled outside of the country once. And that was back in 2024 when I went to Montreal, Quebec, Canada. I'll talk about that in a separate video, but we'll get to that in a bit. I have traveled by car, both carpooling and ride sharing. I have traveled by bus, both in public transportation and by Greyhound. I will talk about that later. And I have only traveled a few times by plane. The last time I traveled by plane was last year when I went to Montreal. I'll talk about that later. And I've also traveled by metro / subway. There has been one mode of transportation that I have yet to travel by. And that is by railway system / trains, proper trains. And you're probably thinking, wait, doesn't the metro count? No, because it is a subway system and it still rules under public transportation. What I'm talking about is Amtrak, Brightline, and other high-speed rail systems across the world. Now, I will show this map right here. This is a map of Amtrak's Floridian line. That green line that you see, it goes from Miami to Chicago. And it will travel in between Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Washington, D.C., Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, and finally, at its final stop, Chicago, Illinois, which is a central hub for a lot of Amtrak trains. I don't know if you could see that, but every Amtrak station or every Amtrak rail leads to and from Chicago, or almost every. Now, I do want to preface this by saying I want to visit to some of these states by said rail line. I live closest to Tampa, and I would like to go to, say, Columbia, South Carolina, which would mean that it would take 12 hours from 4 o'clock in the afternoon to 4 o'clock in the morning, depending on the day. I've already done research on this. You'll see a little bit of a screenshot right here. But it is a $43, or is it 47? It's $43 or $47 for a 12-hour train ride from Tampa Union to Columbia. And that's pretty cool. And from what I recall from watching a couple of videos on the Floridian Rail, it leaves Miami at 11 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes later, sometimes earlier, depending on the weather. And you all know how Florida weather is every single time. So delays can occur. So I can probably have a 12-hour trip from Tampa to Columbia probably around mid-November, early December. I think that's pretty neat. I think it's neat. I just think it's neat. But this also includes the return trip from Columbia back to Tampa. Same 12 hours. We'll get to that in a bit. So yeah, that's pretty much a very inexpensive way to travel, if I'm being 100% honest with you. So let's talk about ride sharing for a second. I've done Uber and I've done Lyft. I've done both of them from where I am to Tampa. Lyft costed me around $65 at most, whereas an Uber costs a little less than that, but still is pretty expensive. Taxi would have been worse, I'll guarantee you that. I've done a taxi from work to home once. It cost me like $20. And I'm like, no. Because like an Uber home from work at that time was like $10. I paid double for a taxi. It's crazy. And I had to pay in cash too. That was the fucked up part. Anyways, moving along, I've carpooled to Tampa, to New Jersey, to Texas, San Antonio, Texas, to Kissimmee, to Orlando, to New Jersey, to Pennsylvania, to North Carolina. And carpooling is usually free, which, no complaints. But sometimes there's going to be a certain commenter who's going to tell stories about my younger carpool days. I'll say that much. You know who you are, by the way. I have ridden on a bus from Tampa to Orlando a few times. The cheapest I've gotten was about $25, and that was from Spring Hill to Orlando, and it took 2 stops in between. The first stop was in Tampa, in between, and the second stop was in Lakeland at the Amtrak station. We'll get to that later. And the most expensive one I took was about a $35 trip from Tampa to Orlando and back. Problem with that was that was the last time I ever rode a Greyhound. And a couple of factors played into that. Number one, it was the Tampa Greyhound stop was completely filthy. It got out of hand. It got filthy. It got overrun by homeless people. So the smell was awful. It was trashy. It was just straight up gross. The bus was not any better. It smelled like urine, feces, and vomit all at once, and it was the most disgusting smell I have ever had to endure during that bus ride to Orlando. And that was straight up from Tampa to Orlando. And I am thankful that my friend arrived and in Florida just a day before I had to return home. I will say that much. That is all I will say. I will never take a Greyhound ever again, unless I really need to. I would rather ride share from Tampa to Orlando. I would rather, once the Bright Line rail, high-speed rail opens up, I would rather take the Bright Line from Tampa to Orlando. I would rather take the Amtrak from Tampa to Orlando. And that would probably be cheaper. And finally, I have taken a plane. I've taken a plane only a handful of times. Twice to New Jersey. And once to Montreal. And on my first time, we took America Online. America Online. America Online. America Online. I meant American Airlines. Wow. And I'll tell you, I was scared for my life. I was scared for my life. Now remember, this was in a post. This is all the times I've flown are in a post 9/11 era. Still, by the way. So, yeah. Taking American was probably not the best first plane to go, but that was our best and cheapest option. I'll say that much. We went from Tampa International to Miami and from Miami to Newark. And on the return trip, we went from Newark to Chicago O'Hare, and we connected from Chicago O'Hare back to Tampa International. The second time I went, we took Continental, now known as United, and it was a direct. It was a direct from Tampa International to Newark, and same thing on the return trip. It was a direct flight from Newark back to Tampa International, and it wasn't that bad. Was actually kind of smooth. Actually, it was very smooth. I enjoyed those flights a lot better than American. Then again, I was younger at that time, and I haven't flown since until last year when I got my passport, and I went to Montreal for the for those in Montreal. Perdón, Montreal. I went from Orlando International to Montreal, and one way using Air Canada's Airbus. Um, and I flew business class slash, yeah, business class essentially, and it was super comfortable. Um, the takeoff was just smooth as butter. Landing could have been better on both the flight to and from. I'll say that much. Um, just the takeoff on both the flight to and from were smooth as butter. But landing could have been better. But it was an older Airbus, so I'll give it some slack. And I'll say this. Every single time that I've flown, a lot of the tickets have been expensive. I didn't have to pay for them. On the American, my old man went to a travel agent to get tickets at a decent price for a connection flight from Tampa International to Miami and from Miami to Newark. And on the return, again, American, considering it was inexpensive, from Newark to Chicago O'Hare and all the way back to Tampa International. We used that same travel agent to go on the next year for Continental Airlines, again now known as United, from Tampa International to Newark, and from Newark directly back to Tampa International. And I think I can't exactly remember how much it was around those times, but as far as I know, my old man got him at a good deal. But last year when Troy got the tickets, and because they were business class, they were pretty expensive. I think they were on the $300 to $400 range from Orlando to Montreal, to Montreal. And that's like including the return trip. It was expensive, but there was a reason why we took the business class. I won't get into details on that, but I'll say this. I'll say this. Flying is still considered a luxury, and a lot of flights, even the cheapest ones, are like over $100. Like if I were to go to Raleigh from Tampa International, that's way too much. I'm sorry to say, it's way too much money. I really don't want to spend so much money to go to Raleigh, North Carolina, just to go to Cherokee. I would rather go and take an Amtrak from Tampa Union Station to Raleigh and risk like a 14 to 16 hour train ride, including like multiple different stops to Orlando, Jacksonville, Columbia, all that. I don't understand why flying has become such a luxury still, when it's one of the most common modes of transportation on the planet. I'm still trying to rack my brain around that. Traveling by train is so inexpensive. Traveling by metro is inexpensive. Traveling by bus is inexpensive. Public transportation is inexpensive. Carpooling is free unless you're offering gas money. Why is it that flying is still expensive when it's the most common mode of transportation in the planet? That's all I need to know. That's all I need to know. I would like for a flight from Tampa International to Raleigh, North Carolina to be as much as a train ticket, $43 or $47 from Tampa Union to Columbia. That's all I ask. And before your comments, yes, I know that there are inexpensive options, but they are unreliable, dangerous even. I'd rather not risk those airlines. I'd rather go on airlines that I trusted. United, Delta, American, Air Canada. I think it was on a connection flight from Chicago O'Hare to back to Tampa International. It was on the connection flight. It was a Delta plane. Just to let you guys know. Just to let you guys know. I think it was. I could be 100% wrong. But why is flying expensive? So yeah. I've never traveled by train. And I've only traveled a handful of times by plane. And I think it's expensive back then, even as I still believe it now. So I want to thank you guys for watching, and this is going to be a bit of an off-the-cuff video, no intro or anything like that. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. You guys have been super patient with me, and I really thank you guys a ton for this. I'll see you guys in another video. Have a good night.